Real Life Outdoors radio show with Nate Bailey. Everything you need to know about hunting Southern Oregon. Wake the wild within. Welcome to the Life Outdoors radio show. And before we get into this week's adventure, let's talk a little bit about the Life Outdoors. We exist to get you into the outdoors because we know that you're going to know something more of Christ and something more of yourself. And what we mean by that is Christ says that he is the way, the truth, and the life. And when we talk about truth, we're talking about getting you into the outdoors because that is where the truth exists. And what I mean by that, not that there can't be truth other places, but what I mean by that is we live in a society now. We live in the world now where people are able to get away from what the truth is by the modern conveniences that have been placed for us. And it's not completely bad. It's just that when we grow up generations strong in this, we start losing the ideas of what it takes to really sustain life. Take meat, for example. Most people don't know where their meat comes from. They just are able to get it out of the fridge and cook it right there, barbecue right there, get it out of the supermarket. It really cracks me up, and it's really telling when you start looking at social media, how social media doesn't want you to see anything that it takes to get meat. They don't, hunting gets kind of shadow banned, and you try to go on TikTok or anything like that, and there's no way that you could see a harvest of any kind of game on there, or even to show you how you actually get your meat. But you could sure show hamburgers, and you could sure show pot roast, and you could sure show steaks. And it blows me away that people actually are trying to muffle where their meat comes from. See, it's a denial of truth. Because if you actually understand where your meat comes from, if you actually have to do something about it to get your meat, you're going to look at life differently. And see, the world system, this world think, doesn't want you thinking that way. That's why we exist. That's why the Life Outdoors exists, because we want you to be able to understand what is going on, what it takes, the realities that it takes to get your own meat. Or the realities of getting your own water. There's times when we're up on ridges that we have to pack water in for it. And packing water is heavy. Water is a heavy thing when you're living off your back. But at the same time, you're so thankful to have it. And then if you've ever camped up on top of a ridge, elk hunted on a dry ridge, and you didn't want to get off that ridge because that's where the elk are, and it's another 3 miles to get down to the water, you understand how valuable water is. That's something that we take for granted in our modern age. We could just go down and buy it out of a vending machine or turn on the tap. But if you're up in the woods, you can't do that. So that's what we exist for. That's what the Life Outdoors exists for, is to be able to introduce people into this type of living, into this idea. Even if they live within the modern world, which we all do, they could still retreat to the non-modern world and find truth there. And I think our society is looking for that. I think there's a lot of people that are turning towards the outdoors to find that truth, to be able to be a part of something that is bigger than themselves and to understand those kind of things. And I really think that that's something big with the Life Outdoors, and that's what we're trying to do here. So if you want to see more of what we're doing, go over to the lifeoutdoors.org. And that's the Life Outdoors with a Z on the end.org. And you could go over there. You could, we're building a guild network. We will have more and more things showing up. We'll have a blog, and we have a lot of things going on at the lifeoutdoors.org. And if you guys go over there, you'll be able to just be able to converse with other people that are like-minded, that are trying to find a little bit of Christ in themselves. So with that said, let's jump into this week's show. I was probably, 12 years old, and we had fished pretty hard. The end of the school year was coming up, and my good friend and we would go down and fish the Sprague River behind the school, and we would try to catch fish, and we never were able to get into anything back there, and we kept losing lures. And as a kid growing up in in that world. And during that time, nobody really had any money. So to lose a lure was a big deal to us. And as we were down there, we would come back and we'd go down and fish during school time at lunch. And then we'd come back, put our rods in our lockers, and then go to shop class. Well, one day there was a substitute teacher, and he was asking us, he saw us putting our rods away, and he's like, "Hey, what in the heck, are you guys catching any fish?" And we're like, "No." And he's told me, he says, I'll tell you what, I got a lawn to mow and dogs to chase. If you come down and mow my lawn and chase my beagles when they get out, I will teach you how to fish. And, to a 12-year-old kid, that was like heaven. And so that was something that I did. I started that year. And as we were down there, we were mowing lawns, and he had a book, used fly fishing book business too. And he had us down there helping him with the inventory on that book business. And as we're doing that, he was building these rods, and he would show us the colors of these rods. And he's like, "What do you think about that color? What do you think about this color?" And as we were making those, we give him our suggestions. And little did we know, but at the end of the summer, he gave us, my brother and I, both a rod. And they were Sage RLP 9 for 5 weights. And we were just overjoyed. And he had shown us, he had us clipping, he lived right on the river, and he'd have us clip these willows on the river, and he'd have us take a look at the bugs that were on there and explain those bugs. And so as we were working, he would teach us all this. Well, I'll tell you what, there's something special about having a mentor in your life that's able to pull out of you your own passions and your own wants, and just to be able to amplify those in front of you. And now I'm in my 50s, and I look back at that, and that's one of the things that set me on a course in my life to where I am now. On that very same river, I guide that river. And it's pretty amazing to think that I've been fishing that river for over 40 years. And that passion was started inside of me with the first big fish I hooked, but it was actually started with people. It was actually started with somebody who took a interest in me, wanted to teach me how to do things right, and teach me how to become somebody who was successful. And I think we lost a little bit of that in our society. I think that we don't look at other people and try to figure out how we can help them become successful people in what they do, and then try to fan the flame of their passions. And I'm talking good passions, right? I'm not talking passions that should be quelched. I'm talking about the good passions that are out there that are good, that are God-given passions, and then using those for the good of other people. And that's exactly what he did. Now, this substitute teacher, he fished, or actually he taught down in California for quite a few years. And then during his retirement years, he moved up to Oregon because he liked to fish the Williamson River. That's the whole reason he lived in Oregon. And he was very articulate. He played, 5 or 6 different instruments, and he was a very good fly fisherman. He taught us how and what kind of flies to use. He taught us how to cast. He even would have like movies. Back in those days, it was VHS, and he somehow he had these VHS movies that would come to his house for fly fishing. He was on some kind of like subscription for fly fishing, and then he'd have us all over. And there were several guys in Chiloquin, and it was like a whole demographic of people. There was a railroad mechanic there, and there was a doctor there, and there's all these other people that would go to his house, and we'd watch these fly fishing videos. And back in those days, oh man, it was corny. And I go back to some of that, and I'm thinking, man, how much I learned through the corniness of it, right? But the mentorship that was going on to a 12-year-old boy with all these guys around that were different, from different walks of life, was huge. And I think that is one of the things that the outdoors does. It just creates. So when somebody has a deep passion for something, they want to share that passion with somebody else. You see it in other things. You see it in violin players where they'll take somebody under their wing. I see it with my kids as electricians. It's funny to watch Gage, who is one of my, he's my middle son, who has journeyed out, and then he'll take, and when they work together here, like at the house or at their house, he'll take my youngest son, and he's showing him things about the electrical world, because my youngest son is an apprentice electrician. And so there's this passion there, and they're proud of their work. I mean, to the point of where sometimes when we get together for dinner, they're showing each other like the panel that they did and how clean it is, and how their bins all match on the wires going into the breakers, and they compare those to what they did. And it's one of those things that when we start looking at, when you're working with your hands and you're working at that level, right? So you're working at the level of where things are coming together. And that's the same as, in the outdoors. When you're working at that level, you start to realize that there is a lot more to what's going on in the outdoors, a lot more than what's going on within our relationships than just, creating this thing or just trying to come along this idea of all I need to do is catch a trophy fish. Well, it's not about that trophy fish. Now, it's about the way that you got there. And I know that sounds kind of that's philosophic, and there's things there that really we probably some people are probably just after trying to catch that big fish, but it's more important than that. It's more important than big fish or big bulls. It's how you got there and what you're willing to do to get there, and the ethics of how you did that. Those are the things that the Life Outdoors is really trying to push. Is we're trying to show you that there is actual life outdoors, and life happens in succession. It's not a start of an idea and then the culmination of that idea. It's everything in between, and sometimes it takes a long time. That was the case. That was the case with me and the Williamson River and Paul Purcell showing us how to catch fish. Just because he showed us how doesn't mean that we caught fish right away. I'll never forget. I had it was opening day of the Williamson River. We had those rods in hand. It was the next year, I think. And I had a pair of hip boots that barely fit me. And I had strep throat and scarlet fever at the same time, just probably a week before that. My mom was like really skeptical of even letting me go fishing, but it was opening day, and she understood my passion. She understood us as who we were, and she's like, okay, but you can't get wet, so I don't even really want you wading, but if you wade, you could wade up to your ankles or whatever. Well, my brother had gone down, and he was swinging a big leech with this type 5 sinking line, and he hooked this absolute toad of a fish, and it came out of the water, and it had to have been 30 inches. And there's a lot of 30 inches on the Williamson, but it was the biggest fish that we've ever seen. And it was jumping and jumping, and I had the net, and he's yelling at me, get down here. And I'm like, I can't go down there, Mom said. And anyhow, he said, Mom won't care. So I went down there, and I tried to help him with that fish, but I knocked it off, and he was pretty upset with me. But at the same time, we understood that passion, and the fish that I knocked off, we both got to see it. We got it pretty close, and we were just both happy about being able to get into a big fish like that. That was the first big fish that we got into, and to be able to see it. And back in those days, we didn't have any camera or anything, so it's not like we were trying to take a picture. And so when we realized what we had done, or when we realized what he had done, we were just overjoyed that, all this time had gone from not being able to catch fish for like a couple years all the way to that summer of learning and sticking with this. And then the passion never went away. And then to being able to hook that fish and go down there, man, I'll tell you what, this is what it was all about. This is the culmination of somebody striking a match on a passion and keeping it going. And that's what we're doing here at the Life Outdoors. And when we get back from the break, I'm going to tell you another story, and I'm going to try to light the passion in you guys, because we're coming up on seasons. It's, fall's not that far away. And if you haven't gone out and you haven't experienced any of this stuff, this is what you need to do. You need to get out. And I don't care at what capacity, Find some way that you can do it. That doesn't mean you have to go right straight into, the backcountry, but get out there and experience something in the life of the outdoors. And I guarantee you, it'll wake the wild within you. It'll make you come back to reality. And that's what we're looking to do. We're looking for you to become back to reality, because if you look for reality, you will find Jesus. So when we get back from the break, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that.
Hunting Southern Oregon. The Life Outdoors radio show on Gold Country Radio with Nate Bailey. Keep it tuned right here for more ways to perfect your craft. Coming up next, Wake the Wild Within.
This is Dave. Dave makes the tastiest burritos in town. But
nobody knows I exist. I'm serving culinary masterpieces to my mom and a raccoon named Dennis.
Then came Jenny.
Dave, have you tried radio?
Radio, isn't that for traffic reports and late-night alien talk?
It's also for thousands of people who don't know you exist.
Huh?
Yet, radio is affordable, reliable, and it works. Not instant burrito fame, but people start showing up kind of results.
So I partnered with Gold Country Radio, and now people know I exist. I've got new customers, catering calls, and Dennis brought a possum. I think they're dating.
I told you. Radio gets your business heard.
Next up, we a second table, maybe indoor seating.
Want to get your business heard? Visit goldcountryradio.org and click Contact to get started. Radio, small budget, big reach, real results.
The Life Outdoors radio show with Nate Bailey. Everything you need to know about hunting Southern Oregon. Wake the Wild Within.
Well, we're back from the break, and I hope you guys are able to relate a little bit to what we're saying here. And, trying to get you guys into the outdoors, I think, is something that is very, very, very important, especially in the times that we're living in, where truth is one of those things that is being kind of stomped on around us. Everything that we look at, all of the news, even the things that people in important places tell us are, well, quite frankly, hard to trust. So the one thing that you can trust is being outdoors. And I'll tell you a little bit about what that means, what truth looks like in the outdoors. It was a long, hot summer. And, we went through some drought years, and being able to just get out was something that we didn't know was going to happen, because we thought that the fire season might hold us back. We'd had several fires, a lot of fires around the vicinity, and people were just kind of standoff. The whole season was looking pretty like it wasn't going to happen. We were still in the middle of COVID, and people were having to wear masks all over town. That was one of the things that we didn't, where I live, we didn't really have to deal with very much. Only time we had to deal with it is like when we got groceries or things like that. But there were some people that were living in that. And one of the things that we really tried not to do was to be a part of having to deal with any of that, because we knew what that entailed. So it was going pretty hard. I mean, 2020 was hard on all of us, I think. But one of the things that we did do is we drew a tag over in Ochoco's, and Gage and I had both gone over, and we both killed our bull pretty early. We killed it on the 6th of September. And so we got into elk. We'd shot. You could see that what we did. You could go watch it on YouTube, but we had shot, or you could even see it on the Dove TV as well. But we shot our bulls, and now it was time to help the people around us that had tags, to help them start getting into some elk and try to help fill their freezers. Like I said, 2020 was hard. Everybody was trying to get out, and it was just a time when people weren't understanding what was going on around them. And truth was something that was being just kind of ran through the ground. I mean, people were saying that you have to wear a mask or you're going to die. Some people were saying if you got the vaccine, then, and that was a little bit later down the road, but they were already talking vaccines. And if you got a vaccine, then you weren't going to get the COVID, and people were dying on ventilators. And it was just, and then they were showing us pictures of like people supposedly that were on ventilators when it was actually like an old picture from, years before. It was so much goofiness going on out there. I knew I had to just get out and outdoors. I knew I had to get away from all this fake world that we had created and get into something that was real, or else I was going to go nuts. And, so we'd done that, but the majority of the week was coming. And one of the things that I was looking forward to is we had one of the young men that kind of grew up through the youth group and was friends of my son's. He took on hunting, and he never had anybody around him to really take him under their wing and take him hunting. And so we did for several years. We took him, and you could see him on our YouTube channel, and you could see him on the TV channel. His name's David. But one of the things that I think he learned through the outdoors, and I'm speaking a little bit for him, but I was able to be right there with him, and I was the one who was kind of mentoring him through this. So that whole idea of I watched him bumble around and try to be in the outdoors by himself and try to do the things that he was doing. And I thought to myself, you know what? There was a guy in my life that was pretty pivotal about trying to help me get in the outdoors. And he went out of his way, even built rods for us. And so when I saw this happening with David, I was like, man, I need to probably help that. And the fact that he's a good person and he's easy to be around, and my kids, they were friends with him, made it a whole lot easier. But anyhow, we decided that we're going to get out. And one of the things that David learned really, really quickly around being around us and hunting with us for a couple seasons is, complaining really doesn't do anything. All it does is aggravate people that are around you. And especially when we're hunting, complaining when you're hunting is, or when you're in any outdoor activity, because quite honestly, if you're in the outdoors, there's things about it that suck. If you're used to sleeping on a really nice Tempur-Pedic mattress with a really nice, pillow and all that, and then you go and you live off your back, things are different, right? Things aren't the same. And then one of David's things is if he was used to eating so much food. I don't know if he still eats that much, but boy, when he was in his 20s, he ate so much food. There were days when he ate 3 mountain houses in a day. And I mean, I could barely scarf down half of one. That's how much. David didn't have an ounce of fat on his body, so everything that he was putting in, he was burning out, and so it was just weird for us to watch him have to pack that much food with him. And so that made things really, harder on him too, because he had to pack all that food. So he had more weight in his pack as far as, staying out. And then just one of the things too is, everybody out there was, we all were hurting. You always hurt. Inevitably, if you're elk hunting and you're elk hunting where we elk hunt, you're going to come across like yellow jacket nest. And then, so you're fighting a bee sting that's probably right underneath somewhere where your pack's rubbing or on your back or something like that, man. And all this stuff is like that. That's kind of the reason that we do it, partially to ground us again, to put us back into where we should be, thinking about what's going on in the outdoors and think about what's going on in real life and what our modern world has pulled us away from. We should be thankful about, right? I mean, you should be thankful for being able to open up your freezer and grabbing a roast. And that means that you should be thankful that, there was an animal around and that animal died. And so you're thankful for it. You're thankful for God's provision. You're thankful for all the things that go along with that. And for us that's part of the reason we get outdoors. One of the biggest reasons I hunt is the truth of the sacrificial blood. When we kill an animal, you can't help but understand that blood has paid a price. And when you look at the life that sustains us, everything dies for us to live. Everything on this earth dies for us to live. I don't care if you're a vegetarian and you just eat plants. That plant died for you to live. And even eggs don't come to life because you're eating them, rather than letting them go down their natural path and become chicks, right? So death is a thing that's a part of our society, and if you don't see this, if you're just living in the modern world and living in a modern age. And so I think that being able to come out and confront those things are huge. That's a huge thing. Well, that's one of the biggest reasons that, we tried to get David out there. That's one of the things that we were trying to do, is trying to teach him the truths that are able to be seen in the outdoors. And one of those truths, he was feeling really hard on the day that we went up. And we were heading up the hill. We were going up, and there's this place that we hunt. It's affectionately called the Knob, but it's not necessarily steep, but it is a long walk. It's a long way up, and it just never changes. And there's so much deadfall that the whole time it just sucks, right? It just sucks. It's an hour's worth of walking uphill with deadfall everywhere and tired legs and heavy packs. And as we were going up, David by now knows not to complain. We just don't complain when we do this because everybody's dealing with the same thing, but you can tell that he's dealing with it, right? And we get up to the top, and when you get up to the top, we find that grass up there, and that's what we're always looking for. And we got up to the grass, and we as we're up in there, we get into these grouse, and David's like, dude, my legs could really use some grouse meat. So we chase these grouse around, tried to kill them, and they bring us all the way on the backside of this knob. And as we get back there, and we're trying to kill these grouse because we want to eat them, because it would be great for our legs, and especially David, because David eats so much. And if you guys haven't felt the need for food, and especially protein, because you've done something hard, then you need to get out. You need to get out and feel that feeling, because there's nothing more gratifying than eating under those circumstances. Anyhow, as we come around we hear this bugle, and we turn right straight from grouse to elk. And it was pretty hilarious because it didn't take us very long, and we were in a constant fight with these bulls, and we get down, and the big bull's down below us, but we call, and this little raghorn comes in. And as the raghorn comes in, David's trying to position himself, and he keeps looking back at me like, hey, where am I supposed to be? And I'm like, man, I don't know, man. You just got to keep your wind right and try to move in on that bull. David moves, and he goes, and he gets to the right. I see him come to full draw. He's about 100 yards away from me. That bull's only considered on me. I could see the bull, and he's looking straight at me because I'm the one back there bugling, and he doesn't know that David's even there. And I see just a flash, like an arrow going completely through the sun. And you can't see the arrow itself. You just see flashes go along there. And I hear that telltale thump. And it's kind of like hitting a barrel because there's air in there, right? So if you hit those lungs, and you guys, if you ever watch this on YouTube, it's a great video. But it went through, that arrow stuck in the bull, and the bull runs off. And I knew that bull was dead at that moment. I come over, I meet David, and he doesn't even know what to think. And he says, I think I got him. I said, you sure got him. You got him good. And so we go over and we look where the bull was standing, and sure enough, there's blood there. So, and lots of it. And so I said, well, why don't we give him a half an hour anyhow, and we'll go down. So we get down there, and sure enough, that bull, after taking some pictures, that bull's dead, 50 yards down the hill. We start going after him, and cause it's hot in the summer, and we're trying to get that bull cut up. And I tell you what, the hornets were the worst that you've ever seen, and they're just surrounding us, and we're having to deal with this to get our meat. And David the whole time was whacking at him, and everybody does, right? But he was starting to understand the realities of where his meat comes from. And I guarantee you, whenever he ate any of that bull, he probably thought back to how hard it was to get that bull off the mountain. For one, we had to make 2 trips to get it off of there. And the last trip was in the dark, and we're stumbling through all that stuff. He's learning a lot about truth at that moment, right? And it's an amazing thing when you start understanding what happens, the journey of trying to get there. He'd been following us around for 3 years before he even he's got shots at bulls, but before he got an arrow in a bull. And for him to be able to be in that moment, it's a reflection time. It's a time of understanding the life and what you saw in the outdoors. And that's really what we're trying to show you guys. And that's what we're trying to get you guys to be a part of when we're out there, to be something that is in the life, and then where you want to go do it yourself. And then you're seeking the truths of what the outdoors bring. That's probably the bigger thing of all this, is when you're seeking the truth of what the outdoors bring, and you want to live out what it means to be human. It'll take you right back to the ultimate human. It'll take you right back to what you were created to be. It'll take you right back to communion with God the Father. And that's all this leads to that. All of our laughs, our loves, our fears, our accomplishments, all of that leads us right back to the Father. And when we start realizing what we are made to be as humans, and the life outdoors, or just the outdoors in general, pulls us back into that. That's exactly what it does. Then you're going to know a little bit more of yourself. It'll wake something wild within you. And what I mean by wild, it's wild against the human nature, not against God's nature. And when you start understanding how much grace you've been given and what that means to you, that you could start becoming human again. So I suggest go over and start watching the Life Outdoors, hit the guild, and then we're going to show you how to come back into that communion with God, and then where you can become wild again, so you can know that wild within. All right. Thanks for listening to this week's show. If you have any questions, please comment and get a hold of us over at thelifeoutdoors.org. Until then, keep on living.
Thanks for listening to the Life Outdoors radio show. Tune in next Sunday evening at 7 p.m. to continue to hone the primitive skills that man has always been meant to master. Hunting, Southern Oregon. The Life Outdoors radio show with Nate Bailey. Wake the wild within.